Okay, hi, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to episode 2 of the Saturday Moot Live conversations, coaching Jessup in collaboration with the Parahyangan International Law Society, or PILS for short. So for this episode, we will be conversing with the advisors, aka the ones who play the most significant roles in the competition experience and performance of the competing teams. So we'll be, understanding the know-how on how to build an excellent Jessup team. It's my pleasure here today to introduce you to the moderators and speakers. So for the moderator, we have Bang John Lumbantobing. He is from Universitas Parahyangan, and he has previously coached Unpar. And for the speakers, we have Kak Sianti Candra. She's from Universitas Pelita Harapan, and she has coached her own alumni, as well as the Podomoro University. And we also have Bang Nico Mooduto. He is from Universitas Indonesia, and he has also coached his own alumni, and he has also coached Universitas Airlangga, or UNAI for short. I think for further details, I think I'm going to invite the moderator and speakers to introduce themselves.
All right. Thank you, Naila. So I'd like to maybe start a bit differently. Instead of introducing, well, maybe I will need to introduce myself, but for Nico and Sean, we'll start grilling right away. Well, I'm very honored and very, very happy and pleased to moderate this session. ISIL as well as PILS are very concerned with the development or developing better Jessup teams. And one thing that we probably haven't heard a lot is the coaching aspect of it, and that's why we convene this session. As for myself, yes, I think the first Jessup team that I coached was 2008. It was Unpar team, and then after that until last year, I coached maybe around 5 to 6 Unpar Jessup teams. So Sean yesterday, or was it? No, yesterday, yes, in an Instagram post suggested that I came from a different generation, AKA older. But that's one of the reasons why I'm doing the questioning rather than sitting on the firing line. But enough about me. So we have two also very experienced Jessup coaches with us today. The first one is Sianti, and then the second one is Nico. Maybe I'll start with Sean first. Sean, hello.
Hi, John. Hi, everyone.
So Sean graduated from UPH, Universitas Pelita Harapan, where she also competed in the Jessup. When did you compete?
2011.
11, just once, or?
Yeah, just once.
Okay, and then you went to DC, of course. And then afterwards, you coached UPH team. How many times?
I think too many times. I think the one that I did not coach, I think 2014 when I signed up for a judge to be a judge.
Yes.
And then 2000.
I think I remember you once coached Podomoro as well. Right?
Yeah, that one. And then the rest of my time for the UPH.
Oh, okay.
Jessup team.
Right. And you are now, well, you're listed here as a lecturer at Podomoro University, but you're also a practicing lawyer, right?
Yes.
I think in many years that you coached, you have been a practicing lawyer, right? And in international firms as well. So maybe that's one point that we'll talk about. And then similar with Sianti, I think Nico has now coached a number of Jessup team as well. When was it, Nico?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, John. Thank you, Naila. Shanti, good afternoon, everyone. Pleasure to be here. Yeah, so I think with John and Shanti, we've been in the moot court circuit for way too long. And I think just for myself, I think I've been involved with the, with the process and with the teams for a good 10 years now. It kind of makes you wonder, probably, are we ever too old for this, right? But yeah, I
That's why we're
started.
talking, so that others can just take over from us, right?
Yeah, you kind of pass the baton to the
Let's
next
talk now,
generation.
and then okay, from now on, you guys do it.
It's actually a very good idea. So yeah, I was also a competitor in the Jessup competition in 2010, 2011, just one time. I actually signed up for 2 years, but I kind of had to back off from the second year just for personal reasons. Before my Jessup experience, I participated in the IHL competition. Um, and those two moot court experiences are essentially my only time participating as a competitor. Now, interestingly enough, Shanti and my journey, we crossed paths over the years, as competitors and as coaches. And I think that's the first time I got to know Shanti, and we got to be, friends as we are right now because of this process. Obviously, we've been very fortunate to meet great people like John, Vice Dean of a very reputable university in Indonesia, very swell person, very good person. So yeah, I mean, in the process, I've also been very fortunate to be involved with coaching and be involved with other teams from other universities as well. In addition to Universitas Indonesia, for example, like just quite recently, I've been involved with the Erlangga team, Universitas Erlangga from Surabaya. Before that, what was that? Sorry.
Congrats for that.
Yeah, congrats to the team. I didn't do anything. I just kind of signed up as a coach and just, basically all the team just took over. I didn't do anything. Before that, I was involved.
Are you going to DC with them?
We were.
Answer yes or no. Are you going or not?
To DC this year?
Yeah.
There's no DC.
There's no DC this year,
Sean.
If COVID was not here.
Oh, you mean?
Are you going? Or?
No, I wasn't planning on going. I think again, I was just as a visiting kind of coach kind of deal. I wasn't like a head coach or anything like that. I was just there to help the team, as best as I can. So I was also saying just before the Erlangga team, I also helped out with Universitas Diponegoro from Semarang, and also Universitas Lampung, Unila, from Lampung. So it's been just incredible experience, being able to meet and help the growth of these law students from different places. So it's been a great process.
So it sounds like it has been a very, very rewarding experience for you as coach, right? Although I threw this curveball earlier in the holding room, right? So was getting into coaching just a matter of being forced by the system, or the cliche answer was, well, I want to give back. You have become a Jessup oralist with a very bright future, so then I want to give back and impart my knowledge in return to the next team. I mean, that almost everyone will say that. And then the first one, and then the second one again, maybe if there has been some sort of a system where in your university, it's just almost automatic. 1 year you become a competitor, and then the next year you become coach. But apart from that, how coaching contributes to your career as well as personal development, any?
Who wants to respond?
Shanti,
oh, okay. I think for me, why I coach for so many time, I think the first reason, I think because I really love international law. I think I have a big passion in international law, and besides, I mean, I will not get any international law information or knowledge or skill for my profession, as a lawyer. So this is the way for me to keep updated, to get knowledge about international law. And second, because I am, I think I can say I am an educator by heart. I also a lecturer, international lecturer. So in a way, coaching Jessup, you will get a lot of facts, cases. You get to know a lot of international principles. I can say, it's a shame. I think I have more knowledge about international law compared to my Indonesian law. I think that is for me. I think that is the true reason. And whether it's rewarding or not, I think sometimes if it's your passion, you will like it. I think that is for me.
Nico, is there anything for you?
Yeah, I think I'm just gonna give the the cliche answer that everyone is giving, and I think, but it is genuinely because I think you get into this role as coaches or coaching role because you are passionate about this process, you love this process, you've gained so much from the process that you feel kind of this urge to give back. Now, at Universitas Indonesia, we do have a system where when you sign up as a competitor, the system causes you to be a coach following your after you've finished the process of competing. So and that process has been going on since I could ever remember, and the process is just works organically. So when people sign up for as a team member, they already have that sense of duty, of being a coach when the competition ends. So it just kind of happens just organically. But yeah, at the end of the day, you love this process and you want to be involved as much as you can, just like what Sianti said.
How controlling were you as a coach? And I mean controlling in terms of managing the team, dividing the task, and so on. Because for me personally, I actually find coaching a very good way for me to develop my skill as a manager. I sometimes say that I treat my team as if they're my mini law firm. So, and I imagine myself, okay, we have this case, you do this, you do that. Here are the timelines and so on. So at least for me personally, I do think like coaching has actually also contributed to me personally in terms of managing or developing my management skills and so on, as well as sometimes learning to deal with people or handle some recalcitrant team members. Do you have that? Do you also have say more similar?
I think in my early days as a coach, I think I'm quite a control freak on my team. But now I'm quite relaxed. I mean, for instance, I can control them to wear certain color of shirt during the competition. And then if they make a mistake in the memorial, if they get a penalty, I can be so angry. But now, like I just relax because I think I'm not too hands-on on the team now. And I think the next coaches should be the one who handle this thing. Now I'm just more micro in a micro way, I think.
How about you, Nico? So I understand that the first time you were coaching, you were still very, how should I say it? Oh, you were still fresh from competing in the Jessup, right? So, but when you look back, was there anything from your early coaching years that you probably now it transpired, it helped you in your career as well, or in your work?
I do think that's an interesting question. I do think it must have helped somehow, some ways. I think you've kind of hit it right in the head there. I think because you meet different types of people with their own unique personalities, and you manage the team for a long period of time, and you get to be involved in certain different dynamics over the course of the Jessup season. it develops your managerial skills. And I totally agree with that. I think it does help, in so many ways. But on your question regarding, being a control freak or whatnot, I kind of figured that Sianti was going to answer that question like that. Now I'm glad to know that it finally came out straight from the horse's mouth. So, but yeah, I was also a control freak, and I think I'm not sure if that's a product of how I was coached personally, just because I think we do have kind of a system where the coaches are very hands-on in the process, kind of like a, quote unquote, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but more like a dictatorship, because they get to basically control your lives, right? For that period of time as you are a competitor, and that's how I was coached, and so I kind of inherited that style of coaching, and so I was also very control freak. In the sense of, I have to control the schedules, I have to control the standards, and and all of that. So yeah, I mean, I was quite controlling, I have to say. It might not be the best trait until I met my wife. I know someone's probably much more of a control freak than I am, but yeah, I mean, it's just kind of how I mean, the process causes you to be that that controlling, I guess.
So
yeah.
So even right off the bat, we hear different sort of emphasis on the role of coaches. On the one hand, there's those who are sort of like more relaxed, and then the one who is sort of more of a managerial type. But one preliminary question before going there is something that has to do with knowledge. Now, Sean earlier said that coaching the Jessup keeps her abreast of international law issues. But that is an issue as well, right? In terms of the knowledge that you require to be a coach, what do you think is required in terms of knowledge? And does that make any difference? Because there's got to be a difference between, say, when you're coaching right after you do the Jessup, so you might even still be a student, compared to when you're more experienced, probably even if your practice is or your work is in international law. What kind of international knowledge do you think a Jessup coach should have? Or does that really matter?
I think it's does not play the role as a coach. Yeah, I think it's not a matter of age, whether they are students or they are older coaches. But I think first, I think they must compete first in Jessup. They must have experience how to be in a Jessup team, how to compete in Jessup. At least they know about Jessup. And second, I think how dedicated they are, because this is all about commitment. As Nico mentioned before, is how do you commit to coach this team? If you don't have a commitment, then there is a bad coach, I think. That's all for me. Perhaps Nico can add.
Yeah, I think knowledge is very, very important. Obviously, when we talk about these moot court competitions, we deal with complex issues of international law. And in certain cases, there's a specific discipline within the international law that is very complicated. And you need, the kids will need guidance from the coaches, and it will be the duty and the task of the coach to guide the kids through that process, so that they will be a better version of themselves, and they would be better students, and help them just be better people generally. And so I think the knowledge part is very important. That's why every time, and this is I learned this from my seniors. I've got very, very good coaches, very, very good seniors, and they've paved the way of developing my skills and my style as a coaches. And all my seniors, what they do in every and me as well, eventually, is that we would also read what the kids read. So we would be up to speed in terms of what they're reading, and to ensure that they're on the right path. So because these are all complex issues, right? And these kids are expected to read these very scientific, very difficult journals, and sometimes they don't really get it right off the bat. So it's all for the coaches to guide them through the research and the learning process so they would understand. And so that's why I think as coaches, the knowledge aspect is very, very important. That's why I think as we coaches, we would read and we would do our own research in addition to the materials that the kids read, so that we could help the kids, guide the kids through the process and challenge them and, make sure they're, to sharpen their knowledge and their skills as well.
So in particular with the Jessup competition, the teams are somewhat, I won't say lucky, but they certainly get quite a help from ILSA itself with the list of basic materials. I think there's 2 batches of basic materials and they can start from there, right? So if you're a coach, especially like the 2 of you who don't actually work in the fields of international law in your day-to-day legal practice, how do you usually start this substantive research? Is it just, do you do your independent work so that you can advise the team as to where to start, or do you simply follow ILSA's basic materials, for instance?
How to answer it, John? I think I have a different style during my get early days as a coach, and then my current style. I think in my previous style, I did read the batch material. I did read the research to ensure that the teams are on the right track. But now there's a younger coaches who will do that. So now I just ask questions and then ask their legal basis. If I think that the legal basis doesn't make sense, then I ask them to keep doing research or try to find the answer in the batch material. But the batch material I think is very good lah. I think at least for a new team, yeah. I think that is for me.
Which I think one point though, that's why to just jump in a bit. Even though we're the coach or even the head coach, sometimes doesn't mean that the head coach knows everything, right? But at the very least, that person needs to be able to, at the very least, have a device or have a system whereby he can ensure that the team is tested and the materials are correct, if not by himself, but at least, by others to help, for instance, right? But Nico, do you go through the same process or the same evolution as Shan? Because again, it surely makes a difference when you were just starting out. You have more time before you entered legal practice, but now you will have much more limited time, I imagine.
Yeah, I think definitely, for sure. I think obviously your involvement in terms of materials, in terms of preparation, depend on the degree to which you are involved in the coaching process. If you're a head coach, you are normally more hands-on in the process. You have access to the materials and you have a tendency to go through the materials yourselves. Now, if you're just a supporting coach, you're not as involved, and sometimes you don't, as you say, you don't have the time necessarily to go through all the materials and to be on the same kind of level of understanding as these kids are with respect to the depth of the research and the knowledge itself. No, but in terms of the materials, the batch materials, I think that's the starting point. So the materials are very helpful, but you don't live and die with them. Yes. You have to, obviously, in the course of the process, you know more, you learn something more, you learn something new. And that's where you develop your research and you get into other materials. And this is, and ILSA has been very, very helpful in providing not only the materials, but also the research tools. For example, you have the LexisNexis, you have the Westlaw, you have all those research tools at the kids' disposal, and you as coaches, you remind them, you encourage them to use all these materials in order to just really understand the depth of the issues. So that's, as a coach, that's how I would encourage, and it's how I would encourage and guide my kids through the research process.
So both of you touched on this notion of a team of coaches as not just like one individual, but as a team of coaches, right? And I guess if a team wants to do very, very well or succeed in the Jessup, yes, like Hillary Clinton said, it takes a village. So how do you structure your, or at least in your experience, how does the coaching team is structured? So I assume that there is always more than one coaches in the team that you're involved with, right?
Nico, wanna start?
So I asked this because because it's related to a question of managing or determining the division of responsibility, or how do you divide tasks and work harmoniously as a team of coaches.
Yeah.
I think.
Sorry, Shan, do you want to start, or?
Nico first.
Okay, that's what I thought. Sorry. Yeah, I think the starting point is the kids' development heavily hinges on the quality and the support from the coaches in the students' developments, right, through the process. Because at the end of the day, the process is about making people better, right? And the coaches, as well as the team of coaches, have a very vital role in the development process of these kids. Now, with respect to the structure, at UI, when I was still more involved in the process, we normally have a head coach, which may comprise of one or two head coaches, right? In addition to that, we have these other supporting coaches that help out from time to time. Now, the head coach or coaches are responsible for the day-to-day, they schedule meetings or group discussions, and they guide the research process, they guide the memorial writing, and the oral pleading sessions. The supporting coaches are more of getting new insights, additional insights, getting meeting, preparing for the oral pleadings where you meet different types of people, and so that kind of helping out process as it pertains to these supporting coaches. I think it was just more recently that there's the concept of group of coaches where there's just more than just two coaches, where you have a panel of coaches. But there's obviously advantages and disadvantages between kind of a head coach versus a panel of coaches kind of structure, right? And I think it relates to just the two aspects, right? Control and division of responsibilities. Now, as a head coach, if you're an individual head coach, or a head coach where you only have two people guiding the ship, you obviously have more control, right? But then you have less, you're not able to allocate the responsibilities and the burdens as much as you would be able to do with a panel of coaches or group of coaches. But with that, obviously you relinquish control, right? And for some people, that's a very hard thing to do. And so you'll need to obviously understand and consider these various aspects from the university and the seniors in proceeding whether or not with a head coaches structure or a panel of coaches. But I think it really comes down to those two aspects.
Sean?
Someone. Okay. I think for for I think for UPH, usually there's a senior coach, and then there is a junior coaches or young coaches. Then the one who handle the team day to day, usually the younger coaches, and then sometimes I think they divide themselves to handle per issue, because we know that Jessup problem is very complex, and one issue is already very complex. And for instance, I don't think one coach can just handle one Jessup team. Yeah, I think it should be a group of coaches. And then I think the one younger coach will handle one issue or two issue, but the senior coach like me will not be assigned with the one issue. But I think the younger coach will try to keep them on track. Then I think the head coach or the senior coach will supervise. At the end of the day, the outcome of their research, their arguments make sense, or lack of legal basis, or yeah, I think that is how I think UPH divide their coaches division of labor.
Might be. I do agree with. Well, now I can see that. I think Nico and I probably really are the sort of like managerial type, very heavy on team management and so on, right? Well, I can say that, just to add a bit more example, I think in the last 2 years, the way I run my team is that, well, I was the head coach. I was helped by one other lecturer at UNPAR, who is sort of my co-coaches. So there are two of us, and we are quite the managerial type, but then we were assisted by what we call the senior mentors. So each team member get a senior who becomes their own mentor, and then so there are 5 team members, 5 mentors. So each mentor is sort of monitoring the progress of each team member, of that one team member, and so we are constantly we are coordinating with the mentors to see how the team members, or that particular team member, what's the progress, how do they have any problems, and so on. And so that's that. And then outside of these coach and mentors, the rest are some sort of like advisors to the team, consultant every now and then, or person who sit for their practices, but not that involved with the team day to day. I mean, sometimes these external advisors can be very topical as well. It can be very topical, right? So let's say, I think last year, for instance, the topic, one of the issue was international trade law. It's quite exotic for most of us, right? And so obviously it's good to have 1 or 2 people who are really, really specialized in international trade law, and then the team went to those very specialized people. But one thing but at the end of the day, whatever.
Hi, John.
Sorry?
Hi, John. Sorry to cut you off. I just wanted to say, now that's the secret sauce right there. And thank you for sharing. That's why we that's why I very much enjoy this process of speaking with colleagues from different universities, because you learn these different types of methods and experiences. And thank you for that. That's very valuable insight into the UNPAR moot court system. Now we can see why they've been very successful. So,
although I don't, well, hopefully it can continue to be successful. That's the sauce, right? But as to the meat, the raw materials, that's something else, right? Although I don't know, I guess we just have to work with whatever we have, right? some if the raw materials are good, then we're lucky. If not, we simply have to do the extra work. But at the end of the day, whatever the role or how the coaches manages the team, at the end of the day, substance will still become an issue, right? And at some point, it still becomes the responsibility of the coaches. But in terms of determining arguments, what do you think, or how do you see that plays out? Is it the role of the coach to say, have the final say, the buck stops with the coach, or on the other hand, the team determine their own arguments, as long as the coach makes sure, as Sean says, as long as the coach makes sure that the arguments have been tested, it's consistent, but then the team determines the argument. How do you see this role of the coach, and how the coach should balance the, between what the coaches think is the right argument against the team's sort of independence?
I think for me first, I used to be a control freak, like I admitted before. I can insist on the arguments to the team that I think you are wrong, and I think this is the correct argument. And yes, of course, we debate both, and then with the legal basis, of course. I mean, no hard feeling, not about the personal. It's just about the arguments. Sometimes, of course, the coach will debate with their team. But at the end of the day, is a team effort, is their own research, their own arguments. If they, at the end of, they want to pursue another argument, then as a coach, I cannot say anything. I mean, I try to not in a way persuade them. But if they are comfortable with their own arguments, so be it. I mean, you cannot do anything. At the end of the day, the role of coach also has a limitation. So in a way, I'm such a control freak. I still let the team decide what they want. That's all for me.
So you have faced a situation where the team didn't follow your recommendation?
Too many times, John. Too many times.
But then that's okay. I mean, you still get along, and then what? Just curious. So what happened afterwards? Did
either they admit that I am right, or they just stay silent.
They were cut off from the team.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. How about you, Nico?
Nico, what? Sorry, I cannot hear.
I was just joking. I was just making a apparently wasn't that funny. I was saying you probably cut them off from the team. Yeah.
No, I mean, is at the end of the day, you are just a coach. You are not a team member. Is their achievement? They are the one who earned this competition. I mean, so what can you do if they don't want to follow you? I mean, if we are just a coach, like we just guide them to go to the right path. Hopefully, we don't get into the wrong path. But if at the end of the day the team decide otherwise, then just let it go. I will just say I told you so. Don't say I mentioned that word. I think a lot of team receive that kind of statement from me. Don't wait until I say I told you so. That's all. But at the end of the day, I will never say that.
Yeah, but as you said, that the team at the end of the day just come around and then realize that you were right. I mean, I guess the coach is always right. But I don't know, Nico, do you have any of a similar experience, or what do you think about the role of coach in determining arguments?
I think it's very vital, but I do understand the constant struggle between ourselves in trying to make sure that the argument is correct, and our roles as to support the growth of these kids. Because the only way that these kids grow is if you give them the confidence to be able to think for themselves and make decisions for themselves based on sound reasoning. And that's really, as Sianti, again, was very hands-on, I think, in terms of from a coach's role perspective. But, there's also that as a coach, you have that responsibility to settle whenever there's a deadlock, right? Because if, like in real world, you face these stalemates, these deadlocks, these dead ends, roadblocks, and in that particular circumstance, the head coach is very vital in determining the argument, the flow or the direction of the argument. And there are cases, obviously, when you have several advisors on the team. Obviously, different people have different ideas, and sometimes the kids get lost in these ideas, right? And they don't really know where, what argument to make, and that's where, as coaches, we step in and say, okay, let's go in this direction. But at the end of the day, and one of my coaches, one of the people that I love very, very much, who've contributed tremendously in my personal growth, is Hannah Askia, the very legend. She was my coach during my Moot Core competition days, and she would say, Nico, and we would get into discussions, and I would say, Han, I have a different view. I think I would like to go in this direction. And she would say, hey, Nick, wherever you decide, I trust you. You just go with it. Because even with these discussions, and we even if we decide to go in one direction, you're going to have these rogue kids going in another direction whenever they plead, because obviously we can't help them when they plead, right? And that's normally when you come to find out that, okay, they didn't listen to your instructions, and this is where Sianti says, I told you so, right? But that's part of the learning process, right? That's the part of growing, right? To encounter that type of situation, making decisions and live with it. Whether it's right or wrong, you learn from it. And that's a very valuable experience. And that us as coaches, we have to kind of step back. As much as we want them to succeed, at the end of the day, our position is to put them in a position to succeed, but we can't take the success away from them. And you can't certainly take away that learning, very vital personal experience. And so, it's always a constant struggle, but as coaches, it's very important that we understand what our roles are.
How about you, John? I'm curious. How about you? Because you also such a control freak, I think.
I know what I think I might when I know what John's gonna say.
Well, a few points though. I don't know. I sometimes say that, well, I'm the head coach for a reason, right? So if I'm the head coach, you're the team member, well, that means that I expect you to listen to me, because if you don't, then we have a problem. But
if you have a very stubborn member, like really stubborn,
yeah, which is something that we might discuss as a last point, right? I don't know. I think I'm pretty lucky that over the years, personally, I haven't really sort of encountered anyone who is so belligerent. I think most of my team members, they mostly listen to me. I don't know. Maybe I think it's important that a coach, especially a head coach, comes in already with a certain sort of reputation or stature, or at least someone that the team members can look up to, or at least respect and appreciate, right? It doesn't mean that you have to agree on everything, but at least the coaches must be someone that the team members can appreciate. But I have one additional point though, on settling. Nico talked about settling sort of disputes or differences in opinion, and it's also important, probably not just differences of opinions between team members, but also if some sort of advisors or outside advisors have some opinions or have some suggestions that either us as coach or the team themselves probably don't totally agree or won't follow, but still you got to maintain a good relation, right? If you just discard these suggestions or opinions, you will turn away, you will turn these people away who are nevertheless are willing to help the team sit in practices and so on. So one specific point about that, I think, is the role of coach to guide the team and advise the team as to how you handle or deal with these various inputs, which might not be consistent with one another and so on. And then guide the team to, at least if that issues comes up again the next time they meet the same person, so that the team can put on a respectful, reasonable explanation as to why we follow this or why we use this argument instead of that argument, so that you don't turn people away. So maybe that's one thing that the coach also needs to become the final say in that, I think. But yeah, that's me. So I'm pretty lucky. I don't really have someone who is so I'm sorry, can I say this, like a pain in the ass? But I don't know about you guys. And then maybe this is a last question, because before we realize it's almost 1 hour. How do you deal with belligerent team member, if there's any?
For the coaches, for the external.
No, the team members.
The dispute between.
Yeah, I mean, someone who just don't listen to you, or someone who, for some reason, this team member doesn't really like working together with the other team member, or they argue all the time, or.
You mean the internal team member dispute?
Yes.
I think we take as a neutral view. I mean, at some point, usually, the team will reconcile by themselves, even without our involvement.
No, okay.
I mean, I heard some, of course, drama dispute. I mean, you know that UPH has a lot of female members, and then there will be a drama, of course. I mean, even during my year in in Jessup team, I think every team has their own drama. I mean, at the end of the day, because you live together for like 6 months, 5 months. I mean, I can say sometimes if you join mooting, you can be more mature as a person. I mean, like you cannot have a baper feeling.
Yeah.
If you have a baper feeling, you cannot survive mooting. So sometimes either you grow up, you don't take this thing personally. I think that's for me.
Including as a coach, I assume, right? You don't take things personal. You shouldn't, right?
Yeah. I mean, we try. I mean, as a coach, we of course. I always mention, if we have a discussion or any arguments, think whether which decision that we will take that is the best for the team. It's not the best for us, but we discuss together. At the end of the day, which option or which argument is the best for the team.
How about you, Nico? Have you ever mediated internal team war?
Oh, many times. I think the short course of action in that particular circumstance, just cut them off, cut them loose. Yeah, might be the easiest solution. But no, I'm just kidding. I don't do that. I don't think we've ever actually had to cut off anyone from the team. But in terms of dramas and internal disputes, that's very very common, and you would expect that to happen in in a process like this. I mean, you have different individuals with different ways of thinking, different personalities. So a lot of dynamics at play there. And as a coach, you have to manage it. manage it in a way that doesn't impede the kids' growth and success and the team success. So a coach is very plays a very vital role in managing those kinds of disputes, and also in terms of, you mentioned previously in terms of when you have kids who are pain in the ass, right? I think as one myself, I think it takes one to know one, right? So you kind of have, you kind of have to step back, and as Sianti also said, I mean, you can't take these things personally. You have to divorce yourself from that, from that situation, put yourself as a coach and a mentor and an objective person, and try to see things objectively, and try to resolve that matter as best as you can, objectively, without putting your own personal feelings and emotions into that mix. For me personally, I like when individual kids speak up, when they have a different opinion that we're willing to discuss it. I mean, I think I've been involved in more than one occasions, really one too many times, where we scream at each other talking about arguments, man. And it's a process that you go through because you don't hate each other. You just want to, you're just very passionate about things, and you just have the differences of opinion, and you don't necessarily have a particular outlet of resolving these differences in a way that is conducive. But that's where the coach has to step in and say, hey guys, you can't scream at each other. You have to lay out certain ground rules in order for these discussions to be productive and help the team success and help the team grow and at a point where they would like to go. So yeah, I mean, I've had my own share of those personal problems for sure.
Interesting. I wish that I was. I've always thought. I hope that I wasn't a pain in the ass. Although, I personally, I think I'm not someone who likes to confront people, right? So, to be honest, when in my teams, if there's some issues, the teams bicker, or there's someone who is just causing problems all the time. For me personally, I often try to use someone else who can deal with that person, right? So try to figure out if there is any other senior, for instance, who can control this person, and then just ask for help. Hey, this person A is causing trouble in the team, blah blah blah. Can you talk to him, or her, and so on? And that's my MO, basically. And then I think second one is probably coaches also need to understand that it's not all 100% work at full steam all the time, right? Sometimes you just got to understand that there are times when probably the team or a certain team member need to take one step back and just breathe and sort out their problems, right? And maybe need some time. If it means cutting down on the work for a few days, or so be it. While settling on these issues. We actually have a yes, and this happens to be, I think, the closing question. This is from Hari Elias, and I think you're a fellow coach who also got involved with Unaya, right, this year, I think.
Oh yeah! Wow. Is Hari on?
No, not this year. Last year, I think. Last year, sorry. So Bahari asked, what practical advice would you give fresh teams who are new to the competitions, especially in terms of limited access to seniors and coaches? So this can be to the team or also to maybe a newbie coach. So a few closing points from you. If you're a new Jessup team, or you're a new coach just managing your first Jessup team, what are the few points that you will say they have to do?
For me, I think they should contact ISIL. Coach to help them. I mean, the fact that they want to join Jessup is already without any senior, without any coach, without any alumni of Jessup. That is a very good thing. The fact because we are not a native speaker, right? And then I think there are a lot of helps, or yeah, helps not only, I mean, if they need a contribution, I think they can contact ISIL. I mean, they can join the workshop this morning, and then they will understand more. I think the lot of information in the Jessup guide, YouTube. I mean, you can access in the internet. It just, if you are committed, you will do your best. You will do research. You will do draft. You will read the Jessup compromise so many times until you remember. I think that's all for me.
Yeah, Sean, before we get to Nico, yeah, Sean, and I just want to emphasize that ILSA also has excellent materials in their web page to guide not just even new teams, but even experienced teams or experienced universities will do well to consult the materials in ILSA's website, right? They have everything from the guide to reading compromise, preparing memorials, preparing oral pleadings, the do's and don'ts, and instructional videos, and so on. So it's all there in ILSA's website. Nico, last word, a few points for new coaches.
Sure. Just first of all, I just want to say hi to Pahari Elias, an obvious legend. I don't know where he's communicating, how he is communicating this question, but wow, great to know that he's on here. I think for me, especially with these new teams, and given that I've been involved with several new teams in my moot court career, so to speak, I think, I'm not sure if this is a practical advice, but I would tell them to enjoy the process as best as you can. Don't get intimidated. Don't feel like you have to achieve a certain goal. Understand that the process is about personal growth and development, and that is much more important than any trophy or any any award that one can get. Remember, because at the end of the day, this process is about making yourself better, right? And so you don't have to think that you have you need to be rewarded with a trophy or an achievement in order to get something from this process. That shouldn't be the mindset coming in at all. Now, with respect to certain practical advices, I think this obviously has to go into specific areas or specific skills. For example, if we're talking about research, we could give them books as a starting point for understanding, just getting that general understanding of international law. For example, one book that I started off when first time doing this moot court is Ian Brownlee, General Principles of Public International Law. That will be my recommended book. With respect to legal writing, there's many legal writing books. Obviously, the movement now is plain English more, and there's specific good books about legal writing and tips on how to improve your writing. And you could give them references. You could actually give them the books yourselves if you want to do that. And with respect to oral advocacy, obviously you could give them the ILSA has a library of all rounds videos over the years. I know we have some of them. Now we could share those videos with these kids in order to get an understanding of and familiarity of how to plead in a Jessup round, right? How to plead well, by seeing real life examples of how mooters have done it in the past, and successful mooters have done it in the past. But you have to be patient, and obviously we're not going to be, especially for these new teams. I'm not trying to undermine them at all, but it's understand that the process about being better. I mean, that's more important than the reward of getting any achievements itself. So that's how I would. That's my practical advice to these new teams.
Well, thank you, Nico. Well, we can go on and on and on until the evening, but unfortunately, we're running out of time. Actually, I think we go beyond the allotted time. So at least just for me personally, thank you to Nico and Shan for joining joining us in this session, and for very insightful stories and experience. And I hope for everyone who are listening in, especially for those who are about to embark in this like noble experience of being a coach, I hope that at least some of the things that we have discussed, you will find it useful to start your sort of coaching career, which I'm sure will be very, very rewarding for you, for your future, as well as for your future development as well. Well, thank you all, and I'll give it back to Naila.
You're on the mute, Naila.
Yeah, Naila, you're on mute.
Yeah, you're on mute.
Apologies for that. Thank you so much, Bang John, Bang Nico, and Kak Shan for sharing your coaching experiences and your way of dedication and giving back to the fellow Jessups and overall contribution to the improvement of the Jessup Indonesian teams. But actually, if you all don't mind, I have one last question before we close this session. It's relating to the COVID pandemic, which we don't know when it's actually going to end. Can you share with us several tips and tricks on how to manage and coach the teams during this COVID time?
Actually, currently I'm coaching ISIL team for Maranatha University. Yeah, I'm back coaching in ISIL. Currently, I'm currently helping them via Microsoft Teams. They have their own platform. And then at least twice a week or once a week, we meet online to discuss their memorial right now. So I think but I find that it's quite difficult to convey my arguments or my concern on their issue compared to physical meeting, because usually this is never happened. I mean, during my time before COVID, we always meet physically, and then for me, physical meeting is still important, but at this time, we help via online. I think that is for me.
Okay, thank you, Kak. Maybe Bang Nico or Bang John have any additional remarks on that?
Yeah, sure. I think really making the best use of the technologies that we have. And obviously, because of the pandemic, we've had to make certain adjustments to how we go about things. For example, we see the rise of webinars, like the one we're doing right now, and obviously it's been working very, very well. So it's obviously making the best use of the technologies that we have. I could say from personal experience that it's been working well. I've coached a number of teams, by doing virtual sessions, and I think I must say I think it's okay. Obviously you can't really. I mean, for most of the things you can't substitute direct discussions, non-virtual sessions. But this is the situation that we're in now. So I think the only thing that we could do is we just make the best use of these technologies. Another thing is, I think just from a coaching standpoint, is to manage your expectations. Obviously, we've dealt with the issue of being a control freak and being being a good manager of the day-to-day case. I think you kind of need to consider how much how much a coach would like to be as involved or as being a control freak, given the current circumstances that we have. So I think just personally from a coaching standpoint, you have to manage that expectation within yourself, which I think is also a very important thing.
I have a couple of points to add. First of all, in fact, I view this as an opportunity to make the working mechanism of the team more effective. I think online or working online as a group and with all the technologies available for us, such as Google Drive or Dropbox to share files And then in Google Meet, you can actually, for instance, you can actually dissect the let's say your framework of argument, or even your draft memo. You can actually dissect them more easily and discuss in real time more easily with someone projecting the draft to the Zoom or to the Google Meet, for instance, right? So in some sense, these technologies actually make it easier to collaborate and work together. And I think as a coach, it may help to see this as a benefit, and don't think too much of it as a hindrance. Although, of course, ideally, a few face-to-face meetings will be better. But if not, at least other aspects of the working of the team can be made more effective with all these online technologies. I think the second point rather is more specific. I think the issue will be especially on oral pleadings. With these oral pleadings go online, definitely there will be different dynamics, different circumstances to how, or different techniques to how someone will plead. And I think as a coach, first and foremost, you got to think about what changes, if any, or what particular considerations and skill sets, if any, that need to change or need to be tailored towards oral pleadings.
I think for me, speak slowly. Because this one time I was invited to judge a pre-face mood. It's something difficult because they speak too fast.
Yeah, I think this is something that ISIL need to resolve. I think quite immediately. I think ILSA just sent out a note about the future competition, how it's going to be held. I'm not sure if there's going to be virtual sessions, but or virtual oral sessions. But if there were, I mean, that could be very, very interesting. Very, very interesting. And right, as John said, I mean, as coaches, we'll need to prepare the kids as best as we can to face that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for sharing your answers. And actually, the ILSA has announced that the international rounds will be conducted online. So yeah, I think that will be a new challenge for all of us. Yeah. Okay.
How about
ISIL?
We're still discussing on that.
How about the one who need the pro bono hours?
Okay. Thank you all so much. Sorry. Okay.
Oh no, because I think I might have just heard something about the IHL competition being held or being judged just based on memorials. So yeah. I'm not sure if there's going to be any virtual oral rounds for the IHL competition.
You are qualified to the semifinal round. They will hold the physical, but only 4 teams. If I'm not mistaken, yeah.
Okay. So there's going to be physical.
Yeah, only for 4 teams. They will judge your memorial.
Oh, okay.
Or the final will be I don't know whether it will be a physical, oral or online.
Okay. Well, interesting. Okay.
Yes. All right. Since we're already past time, thank you all so much to our esteemed moderator and also speakers, and as well as the participants for joining this episode. And so we have earlier seen the Jessup competition from the perspective of the advisors or the coaches, and we actually have another session coming up. It's in an hour at 5 p.m. It's a talk show with one of the Jessup champion teams, which is the 2016 UI Jessup team. So please don't forget to tune in to have a glimpse of the competition from the perspective of the competitors. I think that's all for me. And thank you all so much again for joining the session. See you again.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Cheers.
You.
Thank you.
Bye.